Hey guys, what's happening? Chris is just blowing himself off with the air, a little bit of air power. He's introducing himself to compressed air. There's a handful of people here with us now, but Jay is here. Hi, Jay. How are you? Loring is here in the comment section. He says that LP video was very goof. Oh, good. Okay.
Very goof.
That was very goof, sir. So, yeah. What could make the intonation better? Having the bridge in the right spot, but that's, yeah. Or having the scale be right. If you have a guitar, Chris, that doesn't intonate, it means a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the bridge is in the wrong place,
Mm-hmm.
or the frets are in the wrong place.
Uh-huh.
Or I suppose if you consider that the nut is kind of like a fret, I suppose you could say that you could lump that in with frets, but or the nut is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything else, or it's adjusted incorrectly. But I mean, can you think of? I suppose if the action is too high, when you press down, that will make things. But yeah, you guys know how that works. So, anywho, well, so Chris, I don't know if you watched it, but yesterday's video has over 8,000 views so far, which is pretty remarkable for us.
Mm-hmm. It's like going viral, baby.
In many ways, it is like going viral.
For us.
So, and I don't know if you know this, but there are only a handful more videos that I am going to do this month in my video every day for the month of October 2024. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to go out on a high note like that. What I was a little bit surprised by, pleasantly surprised by, was how civil the comment section stayed. There was a handful of, nothing's wrong with the Les Paul. And I was not trying to say that anything was inherently bad with the Les Paul. And in fact, if people watch the video, they know that I was like constantly apologizing for my what I was about to say and what I did say. But the fact of the matter is I was approaching it from a manufacturing standpoint, not a historical, I love Gibson, everything made by Gibson is wonderful kind of attitude. Now, having said that, I love Gibson. I don't make any apologies for that. And I don't make any apologies for making the guitars that we make and the reasons why we make them. There's a couple of things, though, that I want to catch up to with you guys on before we get too deep into the weeds on this. Remember that I'm coming at this from the idea that there are people who come to my shop and want to build guitars that are like as close to a Les Paul as they can get in 5 days to start and be done with a playing guitar that's got paint on it and is finished and is ready to go in 5 days. And I can't think of any easier way to do it or any other way to do it or any better way to do it than what we have with what I'm calling the wedge neck joint and of course the 7-degree headstock angle. So yeah, there are lots of people who can make the traditional Gibson style neck look great and be great. But sometimes when you get people who are kind of struggling because it's their first time doing it, it's very possible to have the outside look great and have the inside be loaded with gaps and they try to fill it with wood dust and glue and crap like that. And if you have 1-to-1 wood fit and you can do a mortise and tenon style joint, more power to you. I have not seen anybody who can come in having never done it before and in 5 days pull that off the first time. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I am saying that after 5 years of doing this, I've never seen it. So anyway, what did you think of the video? Did you watch it, Chris?
I watched some of it. Yeah, It was good.
Okay.
We've talked about all of that stuff before. So, yeah.
Okay.
And really, it's still very much a Les Paul.
Yeah, there's a handful of things that are different, and some of them I think are cooler. Like, for example, the wood binding with the wood reveal binding. I think it's going to look really neat.
Yep.
I think the 7-degree headstock is, without saying, there's no way anyone's ever going to be able to convince me that a more angled headstock is stronger than a 7-degree angled headstock.
Yeah.
So yeah, but thank you guys for watching that video. And what I was, I think, very surprised by, Chris, was how many people kind of said, I don't like this about Les Pauls either. So that's what I thought we would talk about today.
Okay.
In a live video. Guitar builders react to what you guys think is wrong with the Les Paul. So a handful of people have said to me, and I'm just going to kind of pull a couple out at random here.
Okay.
A handful of people said they agreed with me on the headstock angle. Some people said they used 10-degree. Some people said they used like 8 or 12 or something. And okay. Some people said that they like to use this style neck joint, but with bolted on construction.
Okay.
But the overwhelming majority of people that had problems with Les Pauls said same stuff. This one comes up a lot, too heavy.
Uh-huh.
And this one comes up a lot, too clunky in the heel area.
Okay.
All right. Now, I personally think, Chris, that you could make both of those things go away almost immediately if you reduce the thickness of the body by 3/4 of an inch. So I don't know if you guys know this, but the mahogany section on a Les Paul, even the actual Gibson one, okay, the mahogany section is 1 3/4 of an inch thick. The top is 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch before they start carving it. Now imagine if you cut the mahogany section in half and took off 3/4 of an inch, your overall thickness would still be 1 3/4 inches, but your thickness would be dramatically reduced, which would do one thing. It would make the mahogany section of the guitar weigh 50% less right off the bat. And it would also eliminate the heel being so thick. Now, some people know this and design their guitars so that they are thinner, like the Texas Toast Challenger. What say you, Chris? Do you think so? Like, I mean, like grabbing the Challenger by the heel area here, it's big, or than say it's definitely smaller than a Fender of any kind. You know what I mean? It's definitely smaller than most things. And even though there's this little area here of extra meat on the bottom of the neck, that's done for structural and aesthetic reasons. It doesn't get in your way at all.
Yeah.
You can pretty much get to all the frets here. But that's because the body is quite a bit thinner than, you want to hold that one up? So you can see the body on this one is, well, it's 3/4 of an inch thinner than the Les Paul. That also allows you to do things like put standard tremolo systems on this. So you want to put a Floyd on the Challenger? No problem. You want to put a Floyd on a Les Paul? It's a little trickier. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but just the thickness of the body is a big one. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's all true.
You have to talk more than that so I can drink some of my Coca-Cola.
I don't know, the upper register access, it's a non-starter for me.
Okay.
Maybe just because I don't play like that. Not every song's an 8-minute guitar solo.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about more than the guitar solo.
I guess depending on the player, sometimes it is, but yeah. Well, and those guys generally don't ask this guitar to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine that you could say Les Paul played the daylights out of this thing and was somehow able to, play better than just about everybody.
Yeah.
On what has become the standard Les Paul. But if you are in the 23 and 24 fret area, well, Les Paul can't help you.
Yeah.
And really, you're asking the instrument to do something it wasn't really ever designed to do. Fortunately, there's lots of guitars out there that are better suited for that. You know what I mean? But just for aesthetics and coolness, I don't think you can beat the Les. There's nothing that's cooler than the Les Paul, I don't think. But anyway, some other things that people wanted were double acting truss rods. And I told one guy that I didn't say anything about double acting truss rods because I didn't want to have my house firebombed. What do you think about the double acting truss rod?
I think in this day and age, everything should have a double acting truss rod.
I think so too.
Even vintage style reissue guitars.
I don't think there's any benefit to not using that.
No, no. And all the, well, it's got to have more wood, or, you remove more wood. Really.
I think that's bunk.
I think it's bunk. Yeah. So,
it's how much more wood in the neck is there?
Yeah.
There's like a tiny sliver of 1/4 inch thick wood that is kind of mashed. It's very, very small. And the pros of the double acting truss rod far outweigh the cons of the double acting truss rod.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those, I'm going to say clone correct guys who says, well, the 1959 Les Paul didn't have it, so I don't need it.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny that now, having said that, Chris, I don't think that Gibson is going to change anything on the Les Paul, and I don't think they should, because they will irritate a lot of their core customer base.
Yeah.
So a lot of people said, what about a spoke wheel truss rod down here in this area, kind of like in between frets there? Jay sent us a super chat and says, nobody made me do it just to be ad free. Thank you, Jay. And thanks for reminding me that all of our live videos are ad free. So they're all completely demonetized, brought to you by viewers like you. Okay. So wheel adjust truss rod.
That might be neat.
I wonder, what?
I don't have that much trouble with truss rods.
No, so, I don't either.
I don't have to adjust them all that often. So
I guess the advantage is you wouldn't have to remove the truss rod cover. You wouldn't have to have a truss rod cover.
Yeah.
And
if I had easier access to it, I might adjust it more. That also may lead to other problems.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
And some people are firm believers that removing any material from this area is significantly weakens the headstock, and they might be right, but not as right if you just don't angle the headstock so much.
Yeah.
And I think that after a while you could get a Les Paul designed by committee that nobody would want to buy. They had a spoke wheel down here and had a straighter string pull. A lot of people ask me about
I think the string pull is worsened. Made worse by the headstock angle. And with a shallower headstock angle, the string splay is less of an issue.
I think so too. You get like one of those 17-degree angles, which is more than twice what this is, and then start coming off the nut at a fairly significant angle.
Yeah, 17-degree angle, and I'm trying to make it.
People often ask me, or often tell me, my strings should come off perfectly off the nut. They don't think about this angle here. So if you've got a couple different planes of angle to worry about there, and if you've got a 17-degree neck angle this way, sure, the string make them come off the nut 45 degrees. It's not going to be a particularly stable.
I think if your string pull was straight and a 17-degree head angle, you'd still have problems.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
Some people have said, what about carbon fiber in the headstock area and some other stuff?
Stronger?
Yeah, I guess why not? But I think if you just use the headstock angle, the the way this one is, you can pretty much eliminate that. Anything can break.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Steel neck. Okay. Some people have said that the only problem with Gibson is that they're just too expensive. What do you think about that, Chris?
Made in the USA stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
labor costs are labor costs.
Yeah.
I saw something where, well, I know who I saw was talking about it.
Can you say the name, or is it better if you don't?
Well, labor, it was on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about automotive workers and how in Mexico, hourly wage is about $2, $2.50, and here it's $15.
Okay.
So it's,
I would have thought it would be way more for an
more.
Automobile manufacturer, but
well,
I don't know.
Just entry level. You know.
Okay. All right.
But anyway, yeah. So right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the money goes, is paying the people that are doing it.
I have said this in the past. I've already made this video. I don't feel like I need to make it too many more times. If I ran Gibson, you guys would all hate me. Who's the guy that everybody hated before the current guy? Yeah,
I don't remember his name.
Everybody hated him. That guy would be Pope John Paul compared to me if I ran Gibson.
Yeah.
Because for one thing, I would say that every single guitar would be a historic reissue. They would start at 20 grand, and owning a Gibson would mean something again. It used to be that owning a Gibson was a big deal, and now it's not really. And part of that is because of the dilution of the market, but part of it is it's just so easy to get instruments now. We hear the stories about like you and I today were talking about how Fender makes 1 million guitars every year. Well, it used to be that big companies didn't make anywhere near that number of instruments. It used to be that from 1957 to 1959, Gibson made what, like 1,700 Les Pauls?
Yeah.
I think correct me if I'm wrong. Even if you said it was 1,700 every year, which I don't think it was, that's hardly any.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, you hear about like the guys in England who, back then were trying to get Les Paul. You couldn't get them. And I always wondered why. I'm like, well, maybe it's because of like tariffs and stuff. It's just because there weren't any. There wasn't a whole lot of emphasis to ship. If you're making 1,700 guitars in 3 years, why on earth would you, if you can sell them all in the United States, why on earth would you send any of them anywhere? Whether you're Gibson or Fender, or wasn't a whole lot of companies back then either.
Right. Yeah.
There was, it's hard to imagine a time when it was hard to get guitars, because nowadays, as you pointed out, it's so easy to get stuff that, how do you say it? What's your which
one?
I don't know. I'll just say it,
okay.
But I'm trying to give you the option to say it.
I don't know which one you want me to say.
Chris says that if everybody was playing all the guitars that got bought, there would be nothing but guitar music all the time. You couldn't walk down the street without getting bombarded with guitar music.
Everybody played, guitars that they bought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot more guitar music in the world. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, Rusty Shackelford says, does a volute actually strengthen the headstock? Maybe a little bit. I think that what the volute does more than strengthen the headstock is an aesthetic transition of where the neck stops being the neck and starts being the headstock.
Yeah, I think so too. It's always sorry. That's always a weird area, because you've got this angle and you've got this, and then how do you do that?
Yeah, I like volutes a lot, but I don't think that how about this? I don't think that if every Gibson guitar with the 17 or 14 degree headstock all of a sudden got a volute that they wouldn't still break. They wouldn't still be very fragile.
Yeah.
Okay. They might be slightly less remarkably fragile, but I don't think it's going to be very much.
Yeah.
So, Loring says, Matt, what about weight reduction in the body or none? To really get a significant amount of weight reduction by making cavities in the body, they have to be big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think just drilling some holes in there hardly does anything. We did a video about that once.
Yeah.
And I think I drilled like, I was making a one of our Challenger models, and there's hollow parts on the Challenger level 3 and level 4. There's a hollow section all the way through the top, all the way through the bottom, and a big chunk in the back. And I drilled a bunch of holes to kind of get it started, and then I finished it up on the pin router. And I weighed it before and after each step. And drilling the holes through that did hardly anything in the grand scheme of things. And I think I'd have to go back and watch the video, but it was like maybe a pound when it was all said and done.
It was all said and done.
Yeah, with the
like
routing and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Chunk of wood or
so,
a 4 pound.
The
mahogany chunk.
Clearly the fastest way to make a guitar weigh half as much is to make it half as big.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think there's any reason that the Les Paul needs to or ever needed to be this big, this thick. I think that if the Les Paul in 1959 started out with a 7-degree angle headstock, a slightly different neck joint, and 3/4 of an inch less mahogany on it, everybody would want that guitar.
Yeah.
You know, and then they came out with the now it's the Les Paul Fat Boy. No one would buy that. They go, oh my gosh, it's way too heavy. And yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be something if you in an alternate reality, the Les Paul began life as the Les Paul Light. That was just the standard. And then they came out with, now it's the Les Paul that's even heavier than the regular one.
Yeah.
Well, on earth would I want that?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally speaking, I think it's fairly unheard of for it's all the stuff you love about the standard, whatever this thing is, only 50% heavier. I don't think anybody likes that. I'm sure there's something that anvils or anchors.
Yeah, anchors.
Maybe, but yeah, but for the most part,
burrito.
Yeah, fast food.
Yeah.
But for the most part, things like guitars, nobody's looking for a heavy one. If they find one and it's heavy, it's like, okay. But yeah, I don't think anyone, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I don't think there are very many people seeking out 13-pound guitars.
Yeah.
So
not normally.
Yeah. So yeah. Henry says, I think the volute should be directly behind where the truss rod access hole is routed. Well, generally speaking, that's kind of where no, it's really not actually.
The center
part
of
it,
the volute usually sits right at the center of the 0 fret, right there. So it would come down like that. But it starts transitioning and getting fatter. There and there. So really the most reinforced area is right at the nut.
I think that headstocks should be as light as possible.
Headstocks should be
thin and as light as humanly possible.
Okay. Yeah. This way.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Used to be that was not what people thought.
Yeah.
Remember those plates you'd put on there and people gluing stuff to them. And,
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think a Les Paul? The problem is, like, if Gibson said, we're going to try to answer everybody's demands for the new and exciting updated for 2025 Les Paul. It's headless and it's thin and it's hardly weighs anything. And
when does the Les Paul stop being a Les Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if a Les Paul didn't have a headstock, well, it certainly wouldn't. It would never, ever, ever break off.
That's true.
I mean, that is kind of the thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the simple fact is that if Gibson fans want what they want, and so Gibson keeps making it, you know.
Yeah.
And God bless them for doing so. I mean, I think Fender does the same thing. It to truly be innovative, you have to have a customer base that's willing to buy that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a slam on Gibson or Fender buyers, but generally those guys want the old school stuff.
Yeah, and I think both companies push the envelope a little bit, and it usually falls flat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Every time you try to make a Strat or a Les Paul that's too different, even some subtle things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff is more like, you know, the standard model with some hot rod mods or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's got push pull pots. Okay. And you know, whatever. So.
Somebody told me why am I like I said, I didn't get any comments that were so vile and hate filled that they had to go to the hidden comments for me to review. I didn't get any of those this time, but day isn't over yet. But let's take a super chat from Brad Guitar Miller, who says ad-free late fee. Sad, I'll miss the Les Paul class next year for sure. Okay, Brad. Well, we hope to see you then, amigo. Shark Air says, isn't the Challenger headstock a bit heavy with tuners and slightly larger headstock? Absolutely not.
No, and really it's
small.
not that much longer. Everybody thinks it's really long. It's not.
No.
The tuner holes start a little lower on it, and it's not even a half-inch bigger. And it's certainly narrower.
It's funny how many people think that the Challenger headstock is just positively gigantic compared to the Paul Reed Smith headstock.
Yeah.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
No, the Paul Reed Smith is slightly bigger or slightly smaller.
Mm-hmm. Because it's got a cut inside.
Uh-huh.
It's got a concave feature, and the Challenger headstock has a convex feature.
Yeah.
But the unless you think the Paul Reed Smith headstock is too big, the Challenger headstock is not too big and doesn't weigh too much.
Yeah. So. No, there's
So anyway, what did you think of that video, and why do you think it was so popular, given that it is in less than one day, it is the most popular video I did all the month of October, and I've done a video every single day.
Well, I think people love Les Pauls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the old, well, you only need two guitars, a Les Paul and a Tele, or a Les Paul and a Strat, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
So people love them, and just the idea that you would ever want to change it. Why would you want to change it?
Yeah.
What I don't understand. Yeah. Why would you do that? So.
Can you think of another instrument that is as storied as the Les Paul? You know, because there's actually two Les Pauls.
Yeah.
So the original Les Paul was this single cutaway guy, and all of you know that. And I'm sure you guys know this because you're smart. In 1961, what we now know as the SG was the Les Paul.
Mm-hmm. He wanted to distance himself from that guitar.
But Gibson said, no, we want it. This is the new Les Paul.
Oh yeah, that's how it started. Yeah.
It's sort of like saying the new Corvette, because it was nothing like, you know, like you were saying today, the 2024 Corvette is nothing like the 60.
Oh, 63.
Whatever. Yeah. But it went through. I mean, it had the scale length was the same.
Yeah.
The pickups were kind of similar. The bridge.
So it was funny in that book, in that Birth of Loud book, they talk about Les Paul, or Les Paul even talks about Les Pauls. And I think Mary Ford was the one that was talking about how even back then they were too heavy.
Okay.
That was the first thing everybody talked about with that guitar is why
heavy.
is it so heavy?
Yeah.
And the knee-jerk reaction was to
cut it in half.
More than half.
Yeah.
It was like, completely overboard.
So I wonder why in 1959, 1960, 1961, somebody didn't say, and maybe they did, why don't we just make this thinner?
Yeah.
Because they made the SG came out to be 1.25 inches, 1 3/8.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they wanted something a little more exotic
more
looking,
modern looking,
more modern
yeah,
looking.
maybe. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I know the three Carina guitars, the V, the Futura, and the possibly the Modern, were all a reaction to Fender and Jazz Masters and you know, swoopy, more futuristic.
When did the
looking.
Jazz Master come
58.
out? Okay,
late
so
58.
right around the same. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think it really was a reaction to the Strat. But
yeah,
those guitars were. But
here at Gibson, we know what you like.
Yeah. Brown. Or slightly amber. I wonder what those guitars looked like then, because they probably didn't amber them up. They just
hard to say. Yeah, maybe.
And they were probably fairly white.
So can you think of any other guitar though that's like that? That's, I mean, I guess some Yamaha SGs have gone through radical transformations.
Yeah, lots of names. Yeah,
but like the Telecaster has always kind of looked like a Telecaster.
Yeah, very
Strats
very much.
Always
yeah. Well, and the Les Paul is, you know, named after a player. It's like the first. It's not. Yeah. And yeah, it's not an Endorsey model. It's actually his guitar.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
They named the guitar after the man. So yeah, it's, I don't know. When I think of a long time ago, when I thought of guitars, I thought of Les Pauls. So, or electric guitars. So.
Well, I think that the talking about Les Pauls and talking about classic instruments is always fun. You always kind of stir the pot a little bit. And hopefully that gets people to watch and gets people to interact. And you know, I try to stay up with the comment section for the first 24 hours. And I think I got back to everybody. We talked a lot about what everybody told me. I was surprised that I didn't get more vitriol. And I got a lot of people agreeing with me, which when you talk about something like a Les Paul is fairly odd. When you say, I think it should be this way, people go, well, doesn't really matter what you think, buddy. So, and it doesn't, but anyway. Well, so anyhow, gang, thanks for watching, and thanks for watching. If you watched the video yesterday that came out, everything wrong with the Les Paul and how I would fix it. If you haven't seen that, please go watch it. Like I said, over 8,000 views so far in less than 24 hours. So that's
24 hours.
That's pretty remarkable for us.
From now on, the channel is called Les Paul.
Everything wrong with the Les Paul.
That's right.
.org. Okay.
Yep, there you go.
All right, gang. Well, we will see you tomorrow for another fun video. I have no idea what it's going to be about, but we're coming to the home stretch of the a video every day in October 2024, and I'm glad to almost be done with it.
So really, yeah, you have 2 more that you need to do, and then we'll do
the live stream on Thursday.
On Thursday for Halloween.
Yep.
I'm dressing up like a minion.
Good for you. Okay, I'm going to see Dracula.
Dracula.
Yeah, the play. Yeah. Anyway,
not the band.
Nope. There's a band called Dracula.
No.
Okay.
Usually when you go see a play, it's
I don't know. There might be music. I have no idea. Anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you tomorrow, and have a great night.